Welcome to PR Talk, sponsored by the PRSA of Oregon. This is your host, Amy Rosenberg, founder of Veracity and author of A Modern Guide to Public Relations. Help other people find our podcast by subscribing, rating, giving us a review, or sharing on social media. Thanks for tuning in. Hi, everybody. I have Deirdre Breakenridge here. Hi, Deirdre.
Hi, Amy. So great to be with you.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. So everybody knows Deirdre is the CEO of Pure Performance Communications and the author of 7 books, most recently Answers for Ethical Marketers. So there's so much we could talk about, actually, but today let's just talk about ethics.
I would love to talk about ethics, and I think it's more on our minds now than ever.
Yeah, well, so you just released this book. So can you just tell us a little bit about how you came to this idea? Maybe it was the landscape of the world or what happened?
Well, yes, there's plenty of fodder for this book, just the landscape of the world. But this is a book, I've done it in the same fashion as another book in this series, which was Answers for Modern Communicators. What I'm doing with my publisher is a series of books, and it's really because as a professional in public relations and marketing and being out there on social media, you know, Amy, people are asking so many questions, right? They're whether it's in our LinkedIn community, on Twitter, they come to me in my blog, they're in my inbox, wherever I am. I have students pinging me on Skype. So I thought to myself, with so many questions, it's time to answer in a bigger way. And just like the first Answers book I did, this book, Answers for Ethical Marketers, I just started looking at all the questions that were flowing in, lumping them into groups. The groups became the chapters of the book. I would answer questions from my own personal experience as a PR professional over 30 years, but then I would ask different business leaders and PR influencers and marketers to weigh in. And that's how the book came to being. And I'm just really happy it's at this time that it's being released.
Sure. So what are the most frequent questions that you receive?
Well, there's always the truth to power question. What do? You know that something is not quite right with a communication, but you don't want to speak up because you could lose your job. Mm-hmm. That's a frequent one. There's always the question, well, whose responsibility is it really in a corporation? Isn't that the PR people? Well, yes and no. It's really everybody's responsibility. And it's also leadership. There's questions even around, what do I do? Maybe my ethics and values don't align with my organization. Or how do I tell a peer that they may not be moving forward with the best judgment? Those are the types of questions that you hear over and over again that I try to answer and or have other people answer in the book.
Yeah, I heard that you had some business executives answer as well. So let's see. So, well, here's a general question, but I can break it down big time. The question is, what is the answer to all of those hard questions you asked? But let me just break it down. First of all, people think that they have ethics. I think a lot of people think that they have ethics and values. So they think they're fine, right?
Right.
But then what happens when they go into business, and how does what you call a breakdown in ethical behavior occur, either in business or possibly in everyday business or in a crisis?
I think we all have good intentions where we try to get a handle on our values and we go into companies, and then pressure happens. And stress and groupthink and a number of different scenarios that you don't necessarily prepare for. And that if you act too quickly, if you don't step back, pause, ask challenging questions, rethink, talk to people, don't make choices, on your own, include really smart people around you, that would help. But it really is recognizing the fact that you are going to step into things that you might not realize and to slow it down, even though we're in a time of get it out there or pressure to react. So that's why it happens. Even the best intention. And one thing I really want to point out, we're all human. We make mistakes. It's also what you do moving forward, what you demonstrate that helps to put you on the right path in your decision making moving forward.
So then do the issues where this could occur, the breakdown in ethical behavior, do they occur mostly in a crisis or with a mistake?
Well, of course, that is a 99% chance right there. But it's also, it could just be systemic in your organization, the way that certain practices are done. Maybe it's not a crisis situation. Maybe it's just the way that you're looking at your profit. Maybe it's the way you set up your bonuses in an organization, which affects how people are selling and what they do to sell. You're creating your own type of issue, possibly in crisis. It also could just be the nature of the communications model within your firm. If there are certain areas that are problematic, that maybe there are bottlenecks, and then you're rushed to get something out, that's certainly not a crisis, but you're going to have missteps. Things won't be checked and double checked because you're in such a hurry. So you can see that certainly a crisis could happen as a result of something, or crisis could just happen and because it's so overwhelming, you make mistakes, but it doesn't necessarily have to be because it's a crisis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and it's kind of hard when let's say you're new out of college or you're new at a company or a career, and then you're coming in with your own values, and then you get to a company and you realize that company or a particular leader's values don't match your own. So what do you do then?
Well, I guess it depends on the company, the size of the company, and what role you're playing. If you're really just not aligning with a certain person within the firm, a manager, and there's no way of working that out. If you love the firm and you want to be a part of the firm, then maybe there's an opportunity to go and do something else within that firm. If you find yourself in a firm that completely has poor judgment and there are all sorts of issues and you're getting in the middle of things that are bubbling up, I think no matter who you are or what level, where you come in, that is a time to reevaluate if you actually belong at that company. And I know that's really hard for young professionals to hear, but if it's at that level, Amy, that you're going to get in trouble because what possibly is going on within a company, then you are definitely going down a path of compromising your own values, your integrity, where trouble might not just be losing your integrity at the end of the day. It could be your reputation. It could even be something legally that you're in trouble for. So these are all the things that you have to think about as you're going through different situations and as you're lining yourself up to find a place, a path in your career.
Yeah, I mean, it could be hard now to walk away, but then think about the heartache you'll save for later. If you like legal, you mentioned. So can you talk about I've heard you say this, what is an inner ethics GPS?
Yeah, so your inner ethics GPS, that is something that we all have. It's with us all of the time. It's the little voice inside that you sense that literally tells you this is not a good idea. However, when we are so overwhelmed, when stress is all around us, when we have the pressures of on the job, things are going on with family or friends or whatever, we tend to not be in tune. And I am a firm believer, no matter what industry you are, no matter who you are, that you have to slow it down and become more aware. And that takes quiet time. That takes meditation, breathing. Maybe you like to do yoga, walk in nature. In order to tap into that good gut feeling and that GPS, the inner ethics GPS, you really have to find clarity in your mind and be aligned and self-aware. So it's something that we can all work on, because I'm sure you've had crazy days, right? Where you're less in tune and you're less able to tap into what your inner self is saying to you.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying if you're doing those self-care practices kind of on the side, that will help you be more in tune.
Absolutely.
But what do you do in the moment? So is there a way to pause in the moment, even at work, but you can't go and do a downward dog?
Yes. So, no, you definitely can't do a downward dog at work. However, you can take 30 seconds just to breathe.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it takes. 30 seconds, 45 seconds, do a little bit breathing more deeply. That is hitting the pause button. Then, once you're a little calmer, you can start to gauge what's going on and have a better sense and what you're thinking. That also enables you to say, let me get some other folks here who need to comment. Let me get everything that I need, rather than that super quick reaction, knee-jerk reaction. And we've all had them, that tends to have us fire back something in an email, shoot off something out there on Twitter, or post in one of your communities. That ability to breathe and step back in the moment can literally save you a lot of heartache and angst and annoyance and frustration and some really negative vibrations down the line.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell us about your the 30-second value challenge?
Yes. Oh, I'm so glad you asked this, because it's so simple and you hear it all of the time in reference to, if you step into an elevator with a VC and you had to share the mission and vision of your company, could you say it in 30 seconds? And we do that. We do that around our companies, and we're ready. However, I really believe that professionals should be able to do the same thing in 30 seconds about their own values, and to really believe that, and to speak from the heart and from their core. And that's it. Just to be able, if somebody asked you, what are your values, in 30 seconds, that you know what they are. And if you can do that and they're always with you, then when you go into your companies, you can gut check against yourself and find alignment with what resonates within companies. And before you know it, your values and shared values become the beliefs which really help the culture to bond and to grow. It's just a really good starting place for professionals. Ethics and values start with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it can help you make decisions faster too. And you don't have to go down that crazy rabbit hole of thinking about something when you know you're not going to do it anyways.
Exactly. That is so true.
So it seems like this book is helping marketers and communicators, but to me it seems like CEOs and leaders should read this book as well. So I don't know, what do you do if you have, good self-care and you pause and you know your values, but you are just held back by a leadership that wants you to move super fast and you can't execute on your own timeline, or you're just out of alignment?
Well, that will definitely cause you to be out of alignment. The book does focus on the fact that it's not just, so there is no conscience of the organization. It's the people that make up the organization. And although the focus is usually on the ethical marketer, and when you hear ethical marketer, you think marketing department, communications department, PR department. Oh my goodness, they're the ones who have to deal with all of this. This book breaks down leaders and the organization and how leadership is just as much a part of this as is your HR department, and the fact that all three areas together are able to create the ethics and values and the conduct and to demonstrate and to share outward with the rest of the organization. There is a whole chapter in the book about being an ethical leader and role model. And it even speaks to, for example, one of the questions is, should a leader be held to higher standards, ethical standards, than the rest of the employees in the organization? So it does definitely focus on leaders and also the way the organization, how you can have ethics and values permeate beyond the three areas that I mentioned, the leadership, HR, and marketing, because it has to get out. And if you can do that and set it up so that leaders are demonstrating ethics and values, and it's not just plaques on the wall and it's not just online training, there's more to it, then there won't be such misalignment between groups, between people, and the people in the marketing department won't feel so much pressure and won't be so thrown off by the fact that they're kind of banging up against a wall with leaders who completely are not on the same page. This is culture. And if a leader wants the culture to thrive and survive, well, certainly ethics and values will be a big part of that.
And communicators can think ahead, think about the issues that might arise, and then proactively work towards getting their leaders some education, whether that be DEI or what, anything really.
Right, wherever those trouble spots, those areas are. And we are really good about thinking ahead. And that is a strength. We need to use that. Absolutely.
So you have mentioned another time when your values can break down is if you make a mistake, which we're all human, we make mistakes. But then what do you do? And you did say how you amend the mistake, it can also display ethics. So how do you amend? I don't know if there's an example of a mistake that even is in your book and how it was amended.
Yes, I think some of the examples in the book, the Wells Fargo mistake comes to mind, but it wasn't mended properly in the beginning, especially with the CEO blaming his own employees, shifting the blame. I think the lesson is that just if you can own up quickly and take accountability and then show that you're changing things. Eventually, Wells Fargo did pay a really large fine. They took away certain programs that really had their salespeople not being compliant, pushing accounts and different services that customers did not need. But it took far, far, far too long for this to happen, and a big fine, of course. And I'm pretty sure somebody stepped down there too. So I think the lesson is to know if you need to get to that accountability and apology quickly, do it, because it's just the longer you take, the worse it's going to get for your reputation and your bottom line, and then be able to show it. What are you going to do? How can you demonstrate? And that way you move away from the words and you really get to the heart of what people care about. And that is, if they're your customers, they want to know you're doing the right thing and serving well, and you are protecting them, and you're acting in a do no harm fashion.
Okay. So the last thing I want to talk to you about is kind of shifting focus a little bit, but I'm curious if you could tell people about your feel first model that you created for intergenerational communication.
My goodness, thank you so much for asking about the feel model, because I think it's more important than ever now that we feel first in our
Hmm.
communications. We get a handle of facing our own fears. That's the F in feel. That we engage with empathy, first E. That we always live with ethics and good judgment, second E. And we unleash the love or passion and really stand up for what we believe in. The model is based on, if you can feel first in those four buckets, you are much more likely to be able to tune into what somebody else is feeling. And
Hmm.
that's where, as public relations professionals and marketers, we all talk about the relationship, the relationship. The difference between when you look at the model, you use the model, you take the feel test, you get a roadmap with exercises to increase your level of feel. The whole goal is that rather than just having a one off, rather than just a simple engagement, a one off transaction, you put a lens of feel at every touch point. And with that, if together you can face fears, engage with empathy, use ethics and good judgment, and unleash love and find that common passion, you will have a much deeper relationship.
Okay. And so if people want, they can take the field
Yes.
test online.
Yes. And it's not a short test, it's 32 questions. It's at feelfirsttest.com. It will score you in every part of feel, and the test will recommend exercises for you to do to increase your level of being able to step out of your comfort zone, or to be open and inclusive, to be empathetic, to be ethical, and how much passion you actually show. So it's a good eye opener. It's a great place to start when you're looking to really tune into what other people are feeling.
Yeah, I could see that that would be key either for marketers or business leaders if they're. I think you had the idea when you were thinking about how millennials communicate and how it might be different from
Yes.
their bosses,
Yeah, I
possibly.
mean, it started with millennials because sadly, my stepdaughter, Noelle, was 24 years old. She ended her journey. And it was my quest of trying to understand what millennials were thinking and feeling at the time.
Well,
I was
that's
the only thing I could focus on. And I interviewed over 100 millennials. And you know what they told me, Amy? They said, we want the people around us to face fears, to be open and to be empathetic and to have good judgment, be ethical, and to show their love. That's what they need. And then I thought, you know what? Feel isn't just for millennials, that's for all of us.
Well, and now even younger than millennials with the kids who are home from school and
Yeah,
activities with coronavirus. I know a lot of kids are depressed right now. So I'm
absolutely.
sorry to hear about your stepdaughter.
Thank
Um,
you.
but thank you for creating something that others can use that parents might look at, which I'm going to look at.
Oh,
I mean, I
thank
looked at it,
you.
but I'm going to take the test because, I've got a
That's
girl
great.
home who's, she's fine, but things are a little different with coronavirus. So we just need to pay attention.
It's definitely different, and sometimes we don't realize how much our little ones, or school age, or high schoolers, or even college, if they come home, how it's affecting them as well. And just on the note of feel and parents, my husband and I, we've been we have a children's book just so
Hmm.
that parents and children can. It's called A Whisper from Noelle, and it's so parents and children can explore feelings together. And we have another book in the series coming out very, very soon. So we want parents to really tune out all the external noise and to feel with their children, so they can see and hear the cues and the signals that are coming, because children want to share, But depending if you are self-aware and if you're present, mind, body, and soul, will you be able to receive those signals and really be with them at all times, especially during COVID.
So important. Yes.
Thank you.
So how can people find you, first of all, and all of your books? You've got a lot.
Thank you. So you can always find me on Twitter. I'm at Dee Breakenridge. Connect with me on LinkedIn. If you want to learn about my books, you can go to DeirdreBreakenridge.com. And if you are interested, if you're a parent and you have kids and you want to check out our children's book and the next book coming out, you can go to awhisperfromnoelle.com. And all proceeds from those books that we are publishing go to an award that's set up in Noelle's name, the Noelle Scribola Outstanding Research Scholarship Fund at TCNJ. And the fund goes to students at TCNJ that they can use for their research.
Oh, okay. And quickly, what is TCNJ?
Oh, that's the College of New Jersey.
Okay. Well, wonderful. Well, thank you for your time today. And everyone, just check out all your work.
Thank you so much.
It's a lot. Yes, thank you.
Thanks for listening to the PR Talk podcast. Find Amy's book, A Modern Guide to Public Relations, plus more PR Talk episodes at prtalk.co. And remember to subscribe, rate, and review.